Genshin Impact is a game that you definitely heard about, but if you somehow still don't know what Genshin is, then imagine if Breath of the Wild had an anime graphics slider and cranked it up to 11. Then it became addicted to gambling and realized that the best way to make you play the game is keeping your brain hostage with an endless stream of dopamine. The world of Genshin Impact is filled to the brim with curiosities to explore, quests to complete, and beautiful places to discover. Unless you have completed most of the quests and are a bit overleveled for exploring the world. Then the world becomes a barren wasteland, filled to the brim with enemies that you can virtually one-shot, random chests that somehow never have what you need inside, and quests with walls of unvoiced dialogue that you literally don't care about, because the only thing that you need from those quests are primogems that you need to fuel your gambling addiction. But what about the story? What about the cast of likable and unique characters, the cool elemental system, other stuff that the popular YouTubers keep talking about? Oh, that. They mention it because they are only beginning to understand what Genshin Impact really is. You see, I also was like you, dear viewer, a mindless sheep brainwashed by cute anime girls and the warmth of this golden glow. But now I know what the endgame is like, and I'm going to tell you everything I can, so you will have a clearer picture of what to expect if you want to stick with your waifus long enough that they become just numbers on your screen. The first thing that attracts people here, aside from anime girls, is the deep lore and the story of this world. So I'll give you a brief version if you never played the game. You begin by choosing the gender of your protagonist, based only on your personal preferences, of course. Then the one that isn't your favorite gets captured, and saving them becomes the main goal for our protagonist. Then Mihoyo realizes that writing dialogue for a silent protagonist is very difficult, so they give you a flying Google Translate app that will talk for you.
Why are you looking at your hand? We must save your sister.
Then you encounter the god of wind, Venti the
Actually, I'm a boy.
who tells you that you need to beat up the evil dragon. Then you beat the evil dragon, and the evil ice people of Tsaritsa steal the god's no game no life reference. Then we travel to the glorious and prosperous Liyue harbor that doesn't even need a god to function, but you meet him anyway. The god of rock, Zhongli, also known as the broke grandpa.
I have no money!
Who needs you to beat up a big water tentacle. So you beat the big water tentacle. Then you realize that this time the god willingly gives up his no game no life reference to the KGB. To escape your execution, you travel to the Wee Land of Thunder, where you meet the god of electricity, Raiden Shogun, also known as the waifu of the chess sword, who tells you to end the civil war that started because of the Vision Hunt Decree, which basically means that they hate magic here. But not really, because almost everyone you come across is a part of the resistance, who don't want their magic taken, because without it you become depressed. You try to beat the Shogun, but she downloaded a free Primogem hack which makes her invincible. So you join the resistance and win the war by winning some knife-only 1v1 rounds. You approach the Shogun one more time, but to activate your right vanguard you need to fight the Russian lady. This is it. A fight with the scariest enemy yet, who managed to take away powers from literal gods. Oh, she's not even that difficult to beat.
I am a Snezhnayan diplomat. You know what happens if you lay a finger on me. I swear, if you strike me, I will make sure... The Fatui will make sure that your precious Inazuma... Stop! I order you! And you! Filthy rats! All of you!
Now that you have your anti-cheat, you go inside the Mind Palace of the Shogun and steal the treasure. Wait, wrong game. After being defeated, she decides that she doesn't want to make people depressed anymore. Also, remember those knife 1v1s?
Yo, nice knife, dude. Holy shit.
Yeah, you lost one of those, so they had to trade the chess piece for releasing you from the gulag. This is the story, so far at least. Now, to why I don't really like the way it's presented. Not many people will tell you that you have to overcome this almost every time you finish a story quest in the early game, or how in the late game you will basically complete every single quest as soon as they come out, only to be interrupted in the middle of the story because it is not really finished yet. Or how stupid it is that you will never use your starting character unless you are a very determined person. Also, it is very annoying that every single one of the new characters introduced in the story are like a carrot on a stick dangling before your eyes. MiHoYo always tries to give you some taste of those characters, but only just enough that you will reach out for your wallet, only to waste your money on another Chi-Chi constellation. Now that you understand the deep lore of this game, we can finally talk about what you will do aside from reading walls of dialogue. The whole combat system is based only on two things: the elements and switching your party members. There are 6 elements in total. I'm not counting grass because it's not an element. I don't care, it has like one elemental reaction. I don't care about this grass element. Each of them, besides grass, has several reactions with each other. Each character has an ability to control one of them. Now I will tell you about each of the elemental reactions so you will know how to optimally play the game. Wind plus almost anything equals more damage. Electricity plus fire equals more damage, but it explodes. Electricity plus ice equals more damage. Electricity plus water equals more damage, but annoying. Fire plus ice equals, you guessed it, more damage. Fire plus water is also more damage. And grass plus fire is damage. Out of the whole system there are only like 2 interesting reactions. Rock plus almost any element equals shield. And the most OP reaction is ice plus water that will freeze an enemy. So basically you will use a water character to make your opponent wet, then you will switch to the ice character and freeze him, repeat until the enemy dies. If your opponent has an elemental shield, use the opposing element to destroy it. Then do the freezing loop. You can have up to 4 characters in your party, except when MiHoYo wants to sell you another one. Each character can be attributed to one of 4 classes. Number 1, DPS. They do damage. Number 2, sub-DPS, they do a bit less damage, but they usually help with elemental reactions. Number 3, support, they heal and do elemental stuff. And number 4, of course, are the tanks. We don't talk about tanks in Genshin Impact. This type of combat system promotes dealing tons of damage and healing your party in between attacks, but more on that later. For now you know the basics of how to fight, and we can move on to where you will use this combat knowledge. Let's talk about all the places where you will be spending most of your time in Genshin Impact. First up, the events, where you will do pointless fetch quests, read tons of dialogue that will never come up in the main story ever again, and beat generic monsters. Next up, the Spiral Abyss, a dungeon where you will have 2 teams beating super buffed up enemies with a time limit. I'll tell you about it more a bit later. Bosses. Fighting with them feels a lot cooler than with normal enemies, but they are not fleshed out enough, so in the late game they just become a chore to deal with. And finally, the bread and butter of Genshin's grind. The domains. Those are very simple arenas where you will have to beat up a bunch of enemies for a very specific type of reward. You may say, "It actually sounds pretty good. I feel like that's enough to keep me in the game for several hours a day." Yeah, I kind of agree with you, but there's a problem with playing the game for several hours. For half of things that I listed, you need Genshin's version of mobile game energy system, the resin. Every day you only have enough resin to play for like half an hour at most. Basically, even if you enjoy the late game grind, most of it is locked behind this energy system. Of course, you can go in domains and beat bosses without it, but you will not receive any rewards for it, which defeats the whole purpose of grinding for a long time. But whatever, let's ignore that for now. You have got all of those rewards, now how do you spend them? Alright, let's see. To upgrade each character, you will have to level them up by making them read. Wait, I can't upgrade my characters by beating monsters? You can, but good luck with that. Then you need to upgrade their weapon. Also, each weapon and character have several bottlenecks in their progression called Ascension. They require you to waste resources before upgrading further. That doesn't sound that bad until you look at the materials that you need for them. Then you need to upgrade the artifacts that will give your character some stats. Each artifact has a main and a substat. The main stats are something that define the quality of the artifact. The substats are added while you upgrade the artifact. So if you got HP on that last level, throw that artifact in the trash. After upgrading all of that, you also need to upgrade your character's talents, which basically tell you what percentage of the stat will be used to count the damage of your skills. Basically, even if you have 2000 attack stat, but your talents are at level 1, you will still deal no damage. Oh, did I also mention that almost every type of upgrade requires a different material? That's why I told you that domains give a very specific type of reward. Basically, you will have to clear like 10 different types of dungeons before getting the right materials. Upgrading each character takes up a lot of time, but if you do everything correct, you will have an unstoppable force that will shred everything in its path. Okay, you have completed the story, did all the side quests, upgraded 4 of your favorite characters to fill your party. Where do you go next? I already mentioned the Spiral Abyss, but let's talk about it a bit more, because it provides permanent endgame content. Every month the Abyss changes, giving your party random buffs and debuffs that should change your playstyle every time. The Abyss is split in 2 parts, the Virgin 1 party floors and the Chad 2 party floors. The first floors will basically show you how the Abyss functions and help you get free Primogems if you complete them for the first time. But the later floors... So, you know that you can only use 4 characters in your party, and because of that you will usually have like 4 characters decently leveled at this point of the game. Well, forget about those 4 characters, because now we are entering the hardest half of the Abyss, where you need 8 characters. Oh, and also don't forget about the elemental shields, because if you use a fire character against a fire shield, you will do virtually no damage. So now you also need to upgrade 1 more character for each element, and until you do it, the Abyss is basically locked for you because you forgot to upgrade the 1 character with that 1 element that you never used before. After upgrading all of the needed characters, you realize that for some reason you still can't beat the challenge in time. That's usually because you don't have the most optimal 300 IQ working giga build and team comp for every floor. So you complete the last floor, you give up and never touch that place again. You look at your rewards, you see that you just got some Primogems, and you realize that it is not even enough to get a guaranteed 4-star. From what I've told you, I hope you can see that Genshin is a type of game that is perfectly made to get you addicted to it. All of Genshin's systems look and feel great on the surface, but every time you try to have more fun than the developers intended, the game tries everything it can to stop you. From the resin system to the endgame content, everything has a limit and refreshes with time, making you want to log into the game every day. If you still want to try the game out, then I'm not stopping you. I just tried to warn you about the amount of time it can waste. I have a lot more thoughts about this game, but I think that they don't really belong here. If you want me to talk more about Genshin Impact, then let me know by leaving a like or a comment or maybe even subscribing. For now, thank you for watching and have a good one.